Thank you for that. Welcome, everyone. Regular meeting for City of Lacombe Council. 5:30 p.m. We'll call things to order here for the January 22nd meeting. You've had an opportunity to review the agendas. Anything that you'd like to see removed from our consent agenda at this time? I think to highlight it, I'm going to ask that the letter from the Minister of Environmental, or from the Environment Protective Areas, Rebecca Schultz, be removed. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I move that we accept the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please proceed to vote. And that is unanimous. With respect to the overall agenda, are there any additional items for consideration? Councillor Connick.
I would so move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. One last chance. Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Thank you. So the reason that I asked for the letter from the Honorable Rebecca Schultz to be removed from the consent agenda was to highlight it for our community. I think that it's been quite a few years now that we've been on a regional water system, and I think it's worth noting that there are other areas in the province that are in a very severe state with respect to their water availability. There are 5 stages for basically making people aware of the situation. Stage 5 which is province-wide emergency. We're currently at a stage 4. So I think that it's something for all of us to be aware of and be responsible with water use, even though we may be in an area that currently I'm not aware of any orders to the contrary, but many of our friends and neighbors across the province are not so fortunate, and we need to keep that in mind. That was my single reason for highlighting that for everyone to hear at home. I know the council had an opportunity to read the letter, but I'm not going to read the entire thing out. But suffice it to say that the situation is serious, and given some of the reservoir capacities and whatnot the way they are currently, I don't think it would be reasonable of us to expect that the situation is going to change merely because of a heavy snowfall. This is a long-term event, and it's good to see that our provincial government has taken some steps to help us better be prepared should that situation expand to other parts of the province. Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I just heard already that Lethbridge has already been told to ration water because the Oldman River is so low already. So anyways, I would so move that we accept the minister's letter as information.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? I think we can vote, however, our system does take a moment for us. And then once that is prepared, then we'll be moving into our presentations. So while our administration is getting that last vote underway, I would ask that members from the audit team make your way to the front, please. And you please go ahead and vote on that last item. The council accepts a letter from Minister Schultz as information. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Thanks, everyone. So with us this evening are two members from BDO Canada, both senior managers, Mitch Kennedy and Ryan Wachter. Ryan, you've been with us several times in the past.
Yes.
We appreciate you both coming here and going through the budget the audit process. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thanks for having us today. Yes, as Mayor Creasy says, I've been doing audit for a number of years. I brought Mitch along. He's one of our public sector accountant auditors. He's really knowledgeable in many of the new standards in the statements. So I think what we're going to do is first we're going to run you through our audit planning letter to the members of council. I'm not going to read it word for word, but we'll kind of go through the highlights of it. It is included in your package. If I don't talk about something that you read or a piece you felt like I jumped over it a little quick, just feel free to stop me at any point and we can have a chat about it. Take it you guys run the slides or do I have to clicker? You guys keep adding technology, see if I can figure it out. All right, so this is our report to the board. Really, it's just going to highlight some of the key items of the audit, really laying out responsibilities of the auditor and of management, talk about some of the changes that have come down the pipe in the auditing world, and as well as some of the key risks we've noted as part of our financial statement audit. So overall, as the auditor, our key responsibility is to work with the management of the city to ensure that the consolidated financial statements are issued in a timely manner. We do our best to provide constructive management letters. Management letters are recommendations that we may find from time to time in regards to maybe internal controls, different financial reporting models, anything that we find during the audit that may be of interest both to council and to management that we think could improve either the audit process or the internal control process. Our other key responsibility is to talk to you guys every couple times a year, maybe more if it was ever needed, present our findings from the audit to make sure that those are communicated to yourselves. One of the key pieces of an audit that I always like to mention, it's kind of that gray box there, is that we also gain an understanding of the internal controls that the city has in place. So how do all the transactions transpire? Who's checking them? What are the checks and balances? If we were able to find a significant deficiency in the controls, we would bring that up to council. Depending on how significant it was, it may go to management, then to council. If it was quite significant, it may come straight to council from an auditor. We've never had any of those in the past, but that is one of our responsibilities and is one of the items that we look for when we're doing the audit. The topic of fraud always comes up to auditors. There's 2 pages on it. Really what it comes down to is, yes, we look for fraud. We have certain audit tests we do to try to detect it, identify it. We talk to management about it. We bring it up as part of our planning letter. So either now or at any point, if council were ever aware of it, they could always come and talk to us about it, and we would do additional investigation. Fraud, the chances of detecting it are always not guaranteed because it can be, a collusion impact. It can be smaller items that maybe add up to lots, that there's ways to circumvent the controls, but it is something we watch for and that we test for specifically in our audit. So we have actual audit testing that says, look, these are kind of common things that have always been seen in an audit world. These are the types of transactions that get caught. We test for it. We can't guarantee, obviously, we catch it, but we are testing for it. So up to this point, we're not aware of any instances, whether it be actual, suspected, alleged, potential frauds that have come up during our audit process. Our audit focuses, and in one of the appendices, we'll talk about it a little bit more, on what are the risks. So auditing is a very risk-based approach. When we come in, we look at your financial systems, your controls, the balances of the numbers themselves, and we identify two types of risks. One, there's a risk of an error. And secondly, we identify what we call significant risks. So something where there could be a material or large impact to your financial statements if something were to go wrong. We've identified 3 significant risks. Put it in perspective, for an audit, usually there's maybe 2 to 5, maybe 6 significant risks. So it's not like there's going to be tens and tens of these. It is kind of that 2 to 6 range. We have 3 here. The very first risk is the risk of revenue recognition, in that the revenue recognition policy, it can be complex, and it deals with the timing of when you report revenue and when you don't. It also is a place where there is an incentive or a potential to manipulate the books because of that complexity. And obviously, when you're changing the revenue, well, it changes the bottom line of the city, which then changes people's decisions and thoughts on how the year went. So some of the work we do to specifically test that is we make sure that there's appropriate controls in place around revenue, how it's recognized, when it's recognized. We actually will test a bunch of samples of revenue. Say, look, somebody went to the pool and they paid to go in there. All right, let's make sure that actually happened. Even go into the bank, we check all your grants and review grant agreements. Second piece that we audit and do quite a bit of work on is around a potential for management override of controls. So this one actually comes straight from the Canadian auditing standards, because it is prevalent in pretty much every single audit, in that eventually you're going to get to the top of the chain. Well, those people at the top, they have the ability to just go over top of the controls because they're kind of the last phase of seeing anything. So we actually will test via certain analytical procedures, reviewing of actual journal entries or specific cash disbursements to make sure that we're not noticing any override of controls. That's kind of where, if we ever had to present something to council, kind of past management, that's where it would occur should it ever happen. It wasn't something we noticed or ever have noticed, but that's just the kind of audit risk that's out there. The third risk relates to a new accounting standard that's come out this year, which is called asset retirement obligation. And essentially, there's a risk that the city hasn't reported everything, or it's not reported at the right value because, well, it's brand new. And asset retirement obligation, essentially, the handbook standards have changed for this to say, if you have a property, a piece of land, equipment, anything where you've violated an environmental standard and you know you're going to have to clean it up, you need to actually put that liability on your books. The biggest one we've seen so far is asbestos. You have a building, it's 50 years old, it's built with asbestos in it. Eventually, you're going to tear that building down. You're going to have to pay to get that cleaned up. So that standard's new. You never had to put that in your books before. You could always know it was there, but you never actually had to quantify it and put it on the books. This year, you will see that this standard is there and that there may be a balance related to recording it. So that's kind of our last significant risk where we'll be doing additional audit work. Our audit comes in and we don't look at everything. We'd have to live here if we were to look at every transaction. So we use a concept called materiality, and materiality is a number that we set as auditors to say, if your books were off by this much money, somebody looking at them would make a different decision. Now, materiality is based on revenue. For the city, the materiality is $1 million, $1,025,000. Sounds like a large number. It's not that we're looking for one item that's $1,025,000 in one. It actually will be an aggregation of any errors that are found or noted in an audit. It really is a tool to help us kind of scope and determine your audit, right? We come in April, we're presenting to you, and the day before we show up, some vendor sent you a $200 invoice. Well, I'm not changing the whole audited statements for a $200 invoice, maybe not even a $10,000 invoice. Just helps drive some of that items that can happen in the normal course. And you'll see our audit report always refers to in all material respects, meaning it's within this number. If it gets too high, the errors we found, even if it gets kind of up to 50%, we know that we do have those discussions with management and possibly council as well to say, look, it's not material, but still a big number. Do you guys want to adjust it? So it's not a hard line in the sand. It does float a little bit. The rest of the pages of the report, I'm not really going to go through them unless somebody has questions. What they are is how the audit process flows, and some of the information on how, us at BDO have moved to a little bit more of a digital approach, just like many businesses and many other municipalities have. It kind of just speaks to that piece. There's a little information on BDO's ESG policy, as well as there's some updates for public sector accounting. Does anybody have any questions on our report or any of the processes that we go through for the audit? Let me off easy. I know there can be a lot of information there, and I didn't read it word for word. So if there's something that ever came up later, obviously you can always reach out to us. We do issue, so you're aware, this is the planning one. There is one that we'll issue at final when we come out as well, to give you an update on any key items that came out of the final audit results as well. So we'll tell you how those significant risks played out, what we found, what it meant to the audit itself and to your financial statements.
Apparently the planning is okay by council because there is no questions, but we certainly appreciate you coming out to present to us this evening. When will our audit start this time around?
The audit will start kind of early March. Your management team has actually started on the asset retirement obligation piece. That work will start possibly very soon here because it is such a significant change to the statements, but typical audit work is kind of early to mid-March, and then we'll be seeing all of you sometime either in your first meeting in April or your second one, depending on how it all goes.
Very good. Thank you once again. I'll just give IT a heads up to bring our next presenter online for us. And very good. Presenting this evening, we have from Municipal Experts, Inc. Certainly no stranger to this room, Mr. Paul Salvatore, who is the CAO of Municipal Experts, here to speak to us on the alternative economic development practices. Paul, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, members of administration, and others present there this evening. Pleasure to join you. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to talk a little bit about economic development this evening. This report really was intended to take a broad view of economic development programs with the question in mind about sort of where the city of Lacomb's at options that are available, so you could have an informed bit of background as you look at your strategies moving forward. As you all know, the big question I like to pose is really with all of my clients, what is economic development and what does that mean to you? That's the most important question that we have to answer. And there's no simple answer to that. The range of programs across Alberta and throughout Canada, for that matter, include all kinds of different focuses. Some combine one or two and push in those areas because they're considered to be of highest need for community development. Others may include things like job creation and business attraction, bringing different types of public services to the community in terms of lobbying and coordinating with government. Certainly, affordable housing has been a big topic over the last couple of years moving forward as well. And there are a number of ways to emphasize this through different structures of the municipality. Some of them are policy based. So in many ways, the policy options that you decide upon in this room, in fact, plot out whether or not doing business in Lacombe is an easy process relative to your neighbors. And you could call them competitors within the region as well. The level of marketing that you might apply in trying to make things happen in your community. Other things we've talked about earlier, in fact, last year, a little bit about labor force development, different programs that are available for that, but as well, different strategies for creating jobs. And those could be related to different sectors. And in fact, we know of many communities around Alberta that are find it very difficult to attract doctors and medical staff to their communities. On the whole, if we look around the city of Lacombe, we can say that you're very well served. You have outstanding educational, medical, and public services, as well as paramedical and other financial services offerings that are there. A very good core of commercial and industrial property owners and businesses that are active. And as well, then you've got commercial opportunities in retail that really tie into the population of the city of Lacombe. At the same time, if we look at things like your proximity to Red Deer as an example, sometimes that can be a double-edged sword when you're competing against a market that's 8 to 10 times larger than your own. And then you've got a number of different things happening in central Alberta. I did hear your worship speak previously during the meeting about regional water and wastewater services. Those are fundamental for expansion of businesses and very important to keep in mind as you do business as well. Of course, your location is so favorable on Highway 2, the QE2, as well as having access through 2A and Highway 12. And the pass-through of rail service as well puts you in position to serve the region when you look over to your neighbors in Lacombe County and Prentice and Joffre areas in Red Deer County that tie into the local economy. Of course, like any other place in Alberta, there's a core support of oil and gas servicing to some extent. In the city of Lacombe, there's a number of people, of course, who live there, make it their home base as they, head off and do their work in the oil and gas markets in Alberta. One of the programs that is often looked at in economic development is simply referred to as a business retention and expansion program. What that means is a program where you are in contact with businesses on a regular basis and you are visiting them, gaining intelligence about what's happening in the community, and then able to identify programs that fit for them in order for them to make decisions on perhaps expanding a new line of business or just scaling their business to grow in a particular way. All of that comes back to having access to affordable property, but as well having the support of the municipality, on a policy basis to make things happen in a reasonable time frame. We often hear stories about bigger cities, how it can take years and years to get successful development in place. In your case, you've done a lot of things to make that as frictionless as possible, while at the same time look at new ways to work with the community and empower citizens and businesses to do the types of things that improve the quality of life in the city of Lacombe. And I would say that at the end of the day, that is really the major emphasis for the city of Lacombe, is to improve quality of life. Certainly, if we look at the provincial government comparables, I did take a look at a number of your peer communities across Alberta, and you rank very highly in terms of quality of life. But also, one of the other indicators which should suggest that you're in a bit of a pinch when it comes to economic development is having a very high level of, a very high level of residential tax base versus your commercial and industrial tax base. And certainly the city of Lacombe is not in that category. You're sort of middle range amongst your peers. You start to look at things that are approaching more of a dangerous balance when you get into the 90% residential tax base category. One of them that we're familiar with in Alberta for sure is the city of Chestermere, also very similar in size, but they have not managed to plan ahead for economic development in terms of accommodating future growth in commercial and industrial development. We talked a little bit about the highest and best use of property through your planning policies. So as you look at your municipal development plans, you look at some of the other coordinating plans in the region. There's been lots of work done over the years in Lacombe to make sure that you're thinking ahead and that you're not just in a reactive state when opportunities start knocking on your door. Further to that, the question of moving the needle further comes up, and that's all relative to the amount of time and effort and resources that you put into community promotion and marketing. These days, I would say there's no magic bullet for these things. Some communities, and I sort of allude to this in the report, to give you a great deal of contrast, you'll see the city of Calgary and Calgary Economic Development that has about 100 people that work for that organization, sending people around the globe on a regular basis, doing sector development work to attract businesses and leveraging labor force incentives on a national level to bring businesses that might be in high tech or other different industries to locate in Calgary. Those kinds of resources, if you just consider that number, we'll say an average staff member of 50,000 per year times 100, and now you've got a $5 million organization that does only that. Now keeping in mind, just outside of Calgary, Rocky View County, both of these organizations I've done work with in the past have take a very different approach, and what they do is similar to the approach that you do, where they really focus on making sure that it's as frictionless a procedure and an approach to business when they arrive at City Hall, and then they now work with their real estate brokers and other stakeholders in the community to make things happen. So Rocky View County, if you want to look at it, they've just staffed up to 4 people after having 2 for the last 20 years. So Another thing I can say is just from a competition perspective in Alberta, there's a real emphasis in the counties to get in the game when it comes to economic development. So the province is funding more and more opportunities to get serious about economic development, do capacity building for different organizations. I've seen this in almost every corner of Alberta. Counties that before never thought that they needed to get into this are now waking up and saying it's time. We need to be more proactive in anticipation of the cyclical economy that we live in Alberta. So some of the goals that you have here as well are just producing more local goods and services. I mentioned a little bit about attracting workers and developing workforce in your community. Things that have really changed and are an advantage for a place like the city of Lacombe is continued emphasis on remote work and hybrid work models. But again, keeping in mind that just being open and making yourself available to opportunities and presenting a very high quality of life is very attractive in itself for you. I like to call it the invisible hand versus hands-on economic development. That's how I refer to Calgary and Rocky View. I'd say you're kind of in the middle there. You do have a good presence. It's always a question of how much energy and resources you want to provide to equip your organization on that type of work. And then as well, keeping in mind what you have available in terms of future investment opportunities in that way. Lacombe's done a good job over time of developing. Of course, you see, over a number of years, it's taken some time to develop the Henderson property out on the west side of the city, just past the golf course, as well as the Wolf Creek Industrial Park. Some of that's limited, I think, due to the proximity to Red Deer, but on the other hand, you have other things that you could look at, like the Research Center and AFSC, that you could go after different types of businesses that work with them closely. And I'm sure there's already people in the city of Lacombe that have that kind of business in place. I don't have a lot more to say. I just wanted to share that with you and say there are many different options available to you. And the city of Lacombe, it's been a lot of fun working with you throughout the process, and happy to help you down the road.
Thank you, Paul. We appreciate the information. Just wondering if you had any insight with respect to the rural job creation. I'm not sure what the proper title of that
Oh, yeah,
program
you're
was.
saying like the rural renewal stream.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my perspective is that the province has created a program that activates municipalities to do the work that provinces are usually responsible for. I have talked to a number of different communities in Alberta about this. Some are able to access additional staff in order to do the program. However, those staff, it costs them more to do that work than it does for them to, if they just wanted to kind of work with the agencies that are already in place in those communities. So I think it's a plus, but it's also maybe a minus and a half in terms of what the province has done with that program. I'm not in favor of those programs where you can see it happening and then eventually the resources are just going to get pulled away.
Well, I appreciate your insight. As you know, it was not seen as a program that the city of Lacombe was particularly well suited to or had the resources to commit to. However, we did and continue to take a bit of flack for not being involved in that, but
Mhm.
for the reasons you've stated, it may look as though I colluded with you to answer that question as a loaded one, and in fact, it was not. I genuinely wanted to hear what you had to say, and I'm pleased that it aligns with our information that was given to us from our own administration as well.
Oh, my pleasure, Your Worship. And yeah, that's exactly how I feel about that program. In the meantime, there are more and more, there is more emphasis, as I said earlier in the presentation, about rural areas, getting more support from the province in order to start up their programs. I'm not sure that this one gives as much as it could provide in the best scenario.
Did anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Salvatore? We appreciate your time in presenting to us this evening, and I'm sure we'll have you back again in the not too distant future. So thank you.
My pleasure, Your Worship. Have a great evening.
And next up, as we move into number 6.1, our planning and development services here, we've got technician Carpenter along with our manager of planning and development. I understand you're going to be leading the talk tonight. Very good. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor Creasy and members of council. During 2023, Planning and Development reviewed our fee schedule, and I'm pleased to introduce to council Planning and Development Technician Danielle Carpenter, who will present on the findings and recommendation. Danielle.
Good evening, Mayor Creasy and members of council. As Manager Hackett stated, over the last year, Planning and Development Services has conducted an in-depth review. Has conducted an in-depth review of all department fees. This work was initiated by the 2023-2026 City of Lacombe Strategic Plan, which included the task to conduct a review of all planning and development fees. So Planning and Development Services, commonly referred to as P&D, provides a variety of services, with many of these having fees associated with them. P&D fees were last reviewed in 2015, and the changes were implemented in 2016. The planning and development fees fall into two different categories. So one category would be the safety codes fees. These cover our building, electrical, gas, and plumbing permits, and are intended to cover the cost of permit issuance and inspections. These fees are split with a contracted third party, which issues our building permits and performs inspections to ensure projects adhere to the different safety codes. The different fee types for this category are outlined by the Safety Codes Council and are generally consistent in jurisdictions across the province. Then there are the planning and development fees. So these cover your development permits and deposits, plan amendments, subdivision applications, preparations of agreements, development enforcement, and file searches. These fees are retained by the city and contribute to costs such as advertising, neighborhood circulation, or public engagement. These fee types are determined by each municipality based upon the services that they offer. So these fee schedules are contained within 2 bylaws and 1 council policy. As part of this review, administration will consolidate these 3 documents into 1 bylaw with the goal to eliminate redundancies, improve clarity, and streamline some of our processes. So for the next couple slides, we're going to focus on permits because this is a fairly large component of planning and development services work. So there are 5 different permit types. We have the development permits, building, electrical, gas, and plumbing. So the chart on the screen shows the 5-year averages for the number of permits received, as well as revenue from these permits. So in total, we receive about 750 permit applications per year, which account for approximately $262,000 worth of revenue. And to provide some insight into costs for an applicant, the chart shows the approximate permit fees for 4 different permitted developments at the city's current rates. So you will notice many of these developments require multiple permits depending on the scope of the project. Some may also have deposits associated with them. So it really depends on the scope that's available or that the project entails. So for example, if we at the top, we have the single detached dwelling. So for this type or this development, there would be a development permit and an advertising cost, as well as they will have a building permit, electrical, gas, and plumbing permits. And then there is a column for the safety codes levy. So this is a 4% levy on all safety codes fees that's collected on the behalf of the Safety Codes Council and provided directly to that association. In total, for a single detached dwelling at about 2,400 square feet, you could expect to pay around $2,700 for all permits, and that's at the current rate. Another example would be a new industrial building at about 8,200 square feet. So these projects, again, require the development permit, the advertising fee, as well as building, electrical, plumbing, and gas permits, and then the associated safety codes levy. So in total, an applicant for this type of project could expect to pay around $4,900 at the current rates. So a little bit on the analysis of the fee review. So Planning and Development reviewed Lacombe's comparator municipalities' fee schedules, and we calculated the median fee values from all of them, or the midpoint of the distribution of numbers. A detailed fee comparison was included as an attachment in the report with all of those numbers. So to highlight a bit of this research, we did an analysis by fee category. So you'll notice there are only 4 fee categories listed. However, there are 212 different fee types within these categories. So many categories have multiple different fee types associated with them. So for building permits, so this would include fee types such as a demolition, a change of use, a residential building, a deck, just to name a few. So when we looked at our comparators, we found that 93% of our fee types were below the median, and we were an average 29% lower on the fee values themselves. When we move down to our secondary permits, so that's the kind of the industry name for your plumbing, gas, electrical permits. They include a variety of different fee types. So you would have the number of fixtures for a project values, BTUs. So a lot of different types would be included in there. And we found that more than 95% of the fee types were below the median. And we would look at fee values. The values themselves were 30 to 45% lower than our comparators. Moving on to our development fees. So these are our development permits and development deposits. So we found that 93% of these fee types were below the median. And on average, the fee values were 70% lower than our comparators. And then finally, that brings us to our planning fees. So these are fees such as land use bylaw or plan amendments, subdivision applications, certificates of compliance requests. So we found that 77% of these fee types were below our municipal comparators, and our fee values were approximately 80% lower than our municipal comparators. So looking at these numbers, we suggest that a fee increase is warranted. Administration proposes to align the planning and development fees with the median of Lacombe's municipal comparators in most circumstances. So some of our next steps. So looking ahead at next steps, administration, as mentioned earlier, is looking to consolidate our bylaws. So that would be bylaw 168, the building permit bylaw 306, the permits bylaw, electrical, gas, and plumbing permits, as well as council policy 66 to 10-01-15, the planning and development fee schedule policy. So we're looking to consolidate those 3 documents into one planning and development fee services or planning and development services fee bylaw. As well, with council's direction, administration will finalize our fee review and bring the update to council for consideration in Q2. Alternatively, if council wishes to consider varied approaches or would like to be more involved in the review, a committee of the whole meeting could be scheduled. Based on our research, we are confident in recommending that council direct administration to bring forward planning and development fee amendments based on the median of Lacombe's municipal comparators for council's consideration at a meeting in Q2 2024. Thank you.
And thank you. Obviously, a fair bit of work has gone into this already just to come up with the stats that you have for us. I would suggest giving some of the percentages that we are behind, and after nearly a decade, probably there is room for some changes. Of course, all of our builders and whatnot will be thoroughly excited and enthralled that we're proposing to raise fees. However, I think that they do need to be realistic. I tend to lean a little more towards the cost basis than I do a comparator municipality approach in this particular instance, but I'm certainly open to seeing what the report has to say. And you go through all the numbers and come up with some recommendations. First up, we had Councillor Connick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for that, for the work that you guys have done on that. That's helpful. However, I'm a little bit, I would personally, I'd like to see us meet in March to a committee meeting, just to kind of talk about it a little bit more. I mean, I agree we're lower than our comparators. I too, like the mayor, I'm not in any hurry to adopt that approach where, you know, everyone else is higher, so we should be higher. I would much rather be, to be quite frank, lower than our comparators. In fact, I find it interesting that Mr. Salvatore had identified in his report, and I don't know where he's getting his numbers from, that that we are actually slightly higher than our regional peers when it comes to land development costs. And maybe he's talking about something different, but so I personally, I'd like to spend a little more time on this and discuss it. I agree, maybe there's some room to go up, but personally, I would rather be lower than everyone else to try and induce more or attract more development to this community. And we've made great strides over the last number of years, especially commercial development. And I'd like to see that trend continue. I really don't want to put the brakes on it by increasing our fees significantly. This department, like many departments, you know, like so many departments within our rec department that don't come close to cost recovery, such as our arena pool. I don't see why we have to be in a hurry to try and get that with planning and development. If we have to subsidize that department, so be it. But those are just my thoughts. I would like to see us discuss it more in depth in March. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Connick. Perhaps we could have administration look into that, because I expect they share your interest in having Mr. Salvatore's numbers suggest that land development was more expensive in Lacombe. We've just heard tonight that obviously isn't due to planning and development issues, and from reports that I've seen published by the province of Alberta, I believe that's been brought forward by our administration here, it's certainly not due to offsite levies. So it would be nice to get to the bottom of that fact, to see where in fact those numbers were generated from and what it refers to, why he would make that statement. So be interesting to find out. Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yes, thank you for your report, and thank you for the time spent on this. I guess my biggest concern is our direct immediate comparators. I would not like us to have a median that would be perhaps higher than them. Outside of that, there's 5 questions in here, and what are our tolerance for fee updates or for increasing them? My tolerance for that is quite accepting, and I have no concerns with this. But if we're comparing to us versus Camrose, if somebody is in the region and looking to build a house, they're not comparing to they're comparing to other communities directly around us. And so that's my biggest interest in this is our immediate comparators. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I have nothing brilliant to add to Councillor Connick and to Councillor Dallas, but I do too echo the desire to have a committee of the whole, because your 5 questions that you pose, I think we really need to look at that. I find appealing to the median or achieving the median is just a bit of a blunt stick or blunt way of dealing with this, whereas I think a discussion around this would be really, really helpful for all of us to think about what is our goals with development. Do fees actually even affect whether development happens? Like, I guess that was my question. In particular, I wrote it down in relation to what Mr. Salvatore said, that Chestermere doesn't have a ton of development. And then my question is, would it have anything to do with fees? I doubt it. Chestermere just isn't a community, and my estimation that people would develop there, that because it's sort of a little, it's kind of developed around a lake. Anyhow, I'm being awkward about that. My point is, I wouldn't mind more information about what are the factors that truly influence development. And I'm with Councillor Dallas on that too, that I wouldn't want to be higher than communities right around us, whether they are considered part of our median or part of our comparators or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I don't think anybody was suggesting that Chestermere lacked development. I think that it had an extremely high residential development in relationship to its commercial and industrial. Just so we're not, quite honestly, they've had more than their fair share of bad press lately, and they don't need to have any from us unnecessarily. So, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I do think it's still important to know our costs. I don't know if there's a history that enables us, because probably haven't really. If we, had a demand for more services, we hired more staff. And I don't know if that information is available. Like, I guess it's not really fair to compare. If we, for example, in our public works, if it doesn't justify to purchase that equipment, we would contract that out until it's worthy to do so. But I would just, I don't know if that information is available, if it's ever been kept track of, because obviously if we need the staff, you addressed it and hired the staff based upon demand of services and planning development. But it'd be interesting to know how many hours are put into each application, or, in recognition of the work that you do, of what it truly is, our cost. You probably don't, that's available. So thank you.
Gio Gaudy, I saw your light come on there after that last question.
Yeah, so with it being kind of a dual service department, both planning and development, it's tough to say exactly which part goes to applications versus planning for subdivisions. But we do have here in the report, the overall cost, the average for those services are about 750,000, with the recovery about 250,000. So maybe, or I think, sorry, 300,000. So just over a third cost recovery at using today's rates.
I think it's also fair to say that this is a service to the community as much as anything, given that the cost recovery is relatively low. There's a lot of, with respect to the safety codes permits in there, without having them in front of me, which I don't, there were some that were, I think, as low as $75 for, say, a gas permit, and to have the city open a file and then give half of that has gone anyway to the contractor. So $37.50 to start a file and have staff work on it. I think we can all hope that they're not spending too much time, because that is certainly not a moneymaker, and it's not even a break even. On those instances when that is the only one, quite often it's in conjunction with several other permits, which helps somewhat. But given the numbers for the recovery with respect to the cost of those departments, it truly is a service to the community. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I agree with that. It's certainly not something we're ever going to get our money back or recover all of our costs. It is definitely a service. I do like the idea of having a meeting to discuss this. I would like us to be on the lower end of any of these fees, and not because of the money, but just a perception. I think so we're not grabbing that little bit extra from our developers. We're not going to get all our money back anyway. So I'd like to see us on the lower end instead of even the median.
I seem to be hearing quite often that we're interested in meeting dedicated to this item. Councillor Conick, I'm sorry, I didn't see your light on.
No, no worries. Mayor Creasy, I would so move that council schedule a committee of the whole meeting on March 4th, 2024 to further discuss the planning and development fee review.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Conick, go ahead.
And so to that end, I've been looking at the fees, the projected increases. I guess my question is there a way you can come back with something? So you'd go from planning fees where the current fee and the comparator median. That comparator median, and there's 100, for example, LUB amendment I'm just looking at here. That comparator median, is that the 50% increase, or is just what the comparators are at? Like I guess I'm just curious what that number represents. And can we clarify that, provided this motion is passed on March 4th?
Yes, Councillor Conick. So the comparator medians, that would be the true middle of our comparators fee schedules. So we took all their numbers, took the true middle value, and that's what that would be. So there would be some of them above, some of them below, but that would be the true middle of all of our comparators fee schedules for that fee type.
And if I may, and I may have missed it. There's a lot of talk about comparators. Is there a list? Did you provide a list of who the comparators were? I may have missed it. Sorry.
I don't have the list available with me today, but
Okay,
it
no,
is.
that's fine. If that's something we can see on the 4th too, that'd be great too.
Absolutely.
Given there was some comment about the relevancy of distance, especially for the residential world, whatnot, if we could have a full list of that. And obviously you've got that data anyway, you couldn't come up with that. So yeah, bring the raw data for us for the full meeting. I think there's, it'll answer a few questions on its own. Seeing no other input, please go ahead and vote. We are definitely meeting on March 4th. That was unanimously in favor. Thank you both for presenting. Appreciate it. Next item up, 6.2. Director Lapointe is going to bring us the consideration for the Lacombe Days ask for the Community Builder Partnership Grant. Director Lapointe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This evening, Council is asked to approve the Lacombe Days request for $30,000 to the Community Builder Partnership Fund to support their proposed 2024 concert. Last year, Council established the expanded Community Builder Partnership Grant to foster the development of new events and programs within the community. Policy indicates that a request exceeding $10,000 requires Council approval, and the Lacombe District Recreation Parks and Culture Board approves all requests below that threshold. Lacombe Days Committee received $20,000 for last year's concert, which was a great success on relatively short notice. Although the event resulted in a shortfall, the committee feels confident that this year they're a year wiser and have taken steps to make the event a financial success with a more sustainable future. For one, this request comes much earlier in the year, which should allow for increased marketing exposure and ticket sales. There was also feedback from concert attendees that was extremely positive, and the committee expects this will result in those people returning this year. After reviewing the Lacombe Days Community Builder Partnership application, the Lacombe Parks Recreation and Culture Board recommended that Council approve the request for $30,000 at their January 11th, 2024 meeting. The board support is rooted in the understanding that the Lacombe Days Committee will use last year's experience to help build a more financially viable product. With that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thanks, Director Lapointe. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. We're 3 months earlier than last year, as Director Lapointe elaborated on. I think we were end of April last year, and we're stressing that we really need to take a more proactive approach to marketing. So that's why we're on the ball and try to get an application prior to basically end of 2023 to make this council dates to. So that is our goal, to be far more aggressive to marketing, be when we are 3 months earlier. So other words, thank you very kindly.
Thank you. Perhaps if I could, just a bit more of a detailed idea of what those marketing improvements may be. Given that there is an extra 3 months, I mean, certainly we want this to be an overwhelming success. And I would just, when I was going through some of the numbers and whatnot, I wasn't sure where some of that was all going to. So perhaps I could have either between yourself or Councillor Ross just come up with some of those differences, give you a few moments to think about it. And in the meantime, we'll go to Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess my one question is just in regards to the Community Builder Partnership Fund. With this increase, was there, I guess, based on last year's use of it, would this still leave ample funding for other community groups that would be interested in accessing this?
So this is the first amount to come out this year. So yes, there's still substantial funds in there for this year.
Great. Thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, to elaborate on the marketing. Obviously, we've been working with Sakamoto Agency and requesting more mentorship into that marketing. We've also applied for other grants in terms of more advertising, just to get out a lot more social media. Like I think we barely made it a month and a half to take us out before the concert last year, and strongly feel from being advised we culture and tourism and other resources that people do really plan their summer significantly far earlier than what time frame we allowed ourselves last year. So there's more advertising and the social media and more awareness. Hopefully time works in our favor.
And surprising enough to me, I think after the event, because I thought it was very well attended, there was somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 ticket sales made last year. And just so we're clear, given that there's spectators down on the ice surface and whatnot, how many can the facility hold?
It would depend on layout of the stage, but I would say, comfortably 1,500.
Okay, so given that there was 900, that is a substantial increase. So the possibility for this to surpass a break-even point is there. That's the reason. The only reason I asked for that is I wasn't sure what the numbers were. The seating is significantly less, but when you're using the ice surface as well, it is that much different. So thanks for that. Anyone else? Councillor Connick?
Well, I'll make the motion that council approves a grant of 30,000 from the Community Builder Partnership Fund to the Lacombe Days Committee for the proposed Lacombe Days concert. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, that's what the other two lights were for as well, which is good to see. No other comments then? Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor. We look forward to another successful Lacombe Days, of which the concert is certainly a significant part of it. So thank you for that. Next up is Director Pichet with item 6.3, the bylaw 369.1 emergency management bylaw amendment. Presented today for second and possibly third reading.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, and good evening, Council. As Mayor Creasy says, before Council this evening is second and third reading of Bylaw Amendment 369.1 for the Municipal Emergency Management Bylaw. This is the first amendment where the Lacombe Emergency Management Advisory Committee has reviewed the bylaw and has made some recommended changes. The Lacombe Emergency Management Advisory Committee is comprised of Mayor Creasy, Councillor Hibbs, and Councillor Ross. And Councillor Hibbs is our representative for the Lacombe Regional Emergency Management Partnership Advisory Committee as well. There is background information regarding the makeup of the city's emergency management committees and the Lacombe Regional Emergency Management Partnership Committees in the Appendix A. For the bylaw, though, the amendments include the addition of some definitions for CAO and the emergency management plan. And the Lacombe Emergency Management Plan includes all plans that apply to the city of Lacombe. There's also an update of responsibilities of the Emergency Management Advisory Committee. In addition to its current responsibilities, they added to review plans and in addition to current responsibilities to review the plans and advise council of the emergency management status, the update expands the role and responsibilities to include a review of the plans once a year, provide guidance and direction to the agency committee, meet at least twice per year, and set the advisory committee's quorum as 2 of the 3 councillors or council members. Another update or another amendment is to update the personnel of the Emergency Management Agency Committee to include the CAO or designate, the Director of Emergency Management, 1 or more of the Deputy Directors of Emergency Management, and the heads of municipal departments and services. Another change is to update the invited agencies who may also be affected by a large-scale incident and to participate as part of the Municipal Emergency Management Agency Committee members. And they are to include Lacombe County, Lacombe County Mutual Aid Organization, Wolf Creek School Division number 72, St. Thomas Aquinas Roman Catholic School Division, the Lacombe Christian School, and Central Alberta Christian Education, the Central Alberta Christian High School, the Alberta Health Services, Emergency Medical Services, Burman University, Fortis Alberta, ATCO Gas, TELUS, CP Rail, and any other organization or individual who may serve a useful purpose in preparing or implementing the city of Lacombe's emergency management plan. Another amendment is to add a section to define the Lacombe Municipal Emergency Agencies Committee's responsibilities as reviewing and updating the City of Lacombe's emergency management plan, recommending to the Municipal Emergency Management Advisory Committee the changes or revisions to the plan, reviewing and providing input to the DEM into development of the City of Lacombe's emergency management training and exercise plan, and to meet a minimum of 2 times per year. And the last change, in addition to the current responsibilities, is to update the duties of the Director of Emergency Management to include that the command and control and coordination system prescribed by the Managing Director of the Alberta Emergency Management Agency will be used by the municipal agency. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Thanks, Director Pichet. So I was just curious with the listing under the invited agencies for the update. I was curious, I realize there's a catch-all under the N. I was curious why companies like ME Global and Dow and whatnot are not included in that, and others like AFSC down the road,
The
Federal Research Station.
Sorry, yes, they actually are. The Lacombe County Mutual Aid Organization, they include Dow, Nova, Prentice, all those with that. I'm sorry, at the end, you mentioned the research station. That is one we did not include, so we can make an amendment to do that as part of the catch-all or as a listed member.
Thank you. No, I just, members of the public, I think would find that odd that some of those organizations are not listed in there, but they are umbrellaed under or the other ones. So thank you for highlighting that.
Certainly, the exercises that we perform with the regional system includes a lot of those chemical plants out to the east of us.
Thank you. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Would you like second reading passed first before we discuss, or do we?
You're certainly welcome to bring forward a motion if you'd
Okay,
like to.
I'll do that. I'll approve move that council approves second reading of bylaw 369.1. But I do have comments too.
Certainly, please proceed.
So it's also that listing. Central Alberta Christian Education, I don't think exists as an organization. So it's just Lacombe Christian School. And then why not? I also, College Heights, I was pulling it up, College Heights Christian School is a day school, which is separate from Berman University. So I would think that would be appropriate to be in that list as well. Because then, yeah, we are served by 4 different school divisions. So it'd be nice if they were all listed. Thank you.
Anyone else? Very good. Please go ahead and vote. And that is unanimously in favor. Thanks, everyone. Maybe do we have appetite for third reading, or is there any reason why anyone would suggest that we postpone that? Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll make that motion that council approves third reading for bylaw 369.1 as amended.
Thank you. Specifically, just the minor adjustment of some of the updating of the lists. Okay, good. That is understood. Any additional comments? Please go ahead and vote on third reading. And the same result on that, unanimous in favor. Appreciate it, Director Pichet. You might as well continue on with item 6.4, the traffic bylaw up for third reading.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Before council this evening is third reading of the traffic bylaw 506, and that's being presented for consideration. At the January 8th regular council meeting, the new traffic bylaw was introduced for first and second reading. Through council's discussion, direction was provided to administration to edit some of the sections of the bylaw. The proposed changes include new definitions for bicycles, leisure vehicles, and mobility aids, with also some additions to obstructions that was recommended by legal counsel to add to the definitions of add definitions for mobile vending units, canteens, push carts, and off-highway vehicles. Now, bicycles are being defined as being propelled by both human and or electric power assisted. And leisure vehicles are to include rollerblades, inline skates, skateboards, scooters, electric scooters, or any similar type of vehicle. And mobility aids mean a device that is used to facilitate transport in a normal seated orientation for a person with a disability. With the new definitions for bicycles, leisure vehicles, and mobility aids, it was easier to separate the needs and the abilities of where people could ride without conflicting with the Traffic Safety Act, specifically bicycles. We did find that there were some prohibited areas at the hospital and the lodge for skateboards. So that's why we divided the leisure vehicles out in that regard. There are people who prefer to ride in the roadway, but by using the term highway from the Traffic Safety Act, it does allow those who prefer to ride in the roadway and yet have the ability to ride on the sidewalk by ensuring that pedestrians' safety is paramount. A clause was added for leisure vehicles to ensure that there was no conflict for areas where no sidewalks are available as well. There was also a change in wording of section 6.4 to ensure that safety is the primary reason for ticketing or for a ticket to be issued in the event of a snow or ice where snow and ice are a concern on a sidewalk. Also, there was consideration for the properties with nowhere but to push snow out onto the street. Therefore, the clause, except in places where a building is abutting a sidewalk, was added to section 6.4C regarding the placement of snow from sidewalks. At the last meeting, there was a recommendation to remove the 50% reduced rate from the Schedule B. And therefore, a clause was also added into section 12, road closures, that spoke to the exemption of the 50% reduction for that section. The last change that was made based on discussion or based on legal counsel was in the repeal section of the bylaw to ensure that when this bylaw is fully adopted, that the previous bylaw 223 is still in full force and in effect, to ensure that bylaw enforcement can follow up on tickets from any previous concerns. So this evening, administration is recommending that third reading of the bylaw be passed. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Director Piche. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Sorry to I just ask a few more questions at the top of page 6 regarding leisure vehicles and mobility aids. And the sentence says the new definitions are also allowed a clause to be added to ensure that leisure vehicles and mobility aids are used on sidewalks except where no sidewalk is available. So I apologize if you kind of indicated what that meant. So does that mean they must be on sidewalks unless there's no sidewalk? They must.
That's correct. In the bylaw, it does say shall.
Is that the will of our council that they must be on sidewalks? I didn't think that that's how we left it at the end of last meeting, but because then you're saying bicycles should be on sidewalks at all times too, unless there's no sidewalk.
No, that's not quite right. With leisure vehicles, that's specifically to rollerblades, inline skates, scooters, skateboards. In that regard, yeah, bicycles are a separate definition now.
Right.
Yeah, and the term highway does include. So in the bylaw, we specify that leisure vehicles shall ride on sidewalks except for where there are no sidewalks, but bicycles can use a highway, and highway does include bicycles in the definition.
Right. So may I follow up, Mayor?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mayor. So this means that people who are on mobility aids have to use a sidewalk for the most part. And so they're on that really long stretch coming down from Royal Oak. And there's lots of pedestrians. Where do they go to get off of it in order to keep the pedestrians safe? I guess I still was the understanding that they would be able to ride right next to the curb on the street.
Sorry, actually as per the Traffic Safety Act, they are not allowed to ride on roadways as a mobility device.
Okay. Oh, you're saying that, and that overrides city bylaw. Okay.
Counselor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I have brought this up before and I didn't see reference to it in here, the difference between a rental e-scooter and a personally owned e-scooter. So I guess I would be not prepared to pass reading without that being recognized. I'm not sure how and where that should be, but I do believe that should be, because there was great confusion this past summer, for example, with, you know, I have these, I'm totally allowed to use them. Well, actually, no, provincial law says that those are actually illegal off of your property. So, and I had indicated that this was going to be a discussion point at AUMA or Alberta Municipalities, sorry, which it was. But there's been no change in the law as of right now that I'm aware of. So I think it would be very helpful to our citizens if we could make that very clear in our own bylaw that that is the case. And should that change by the province at a later date, then we can obviously change our bylaw to reflect that. But I do think that it should be very clear for residents, because it's unfair that they think that they're allowed to use that. And those aren't cheap things to spend money on, and then have it turn out that they're actually illegal. And it's not even that we're saying that they are, but I think we should be, we owe it to our residents to be extra clear that those in fact are not allowed.
Counselor Conick.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I want to thank administration for the changes they brought forward. I do like them. I'm just sorry, Councillor Hibbs, I'm looking for clarification. So if someone owns a scooter, they can't use it on the road or on the sidewalk, or they can? Sorry, I'm just.
So if it's an e-scooter, the only e-scooters that are allowed to be operated off of private property in the province are the rental ones that have been given special permission to operate that way. But as far as personal e-scooters go, those would be illegal to operate off of personal property.
So the way our definition reads here, it does not distinguish between private or rental. So perhaps the province will get to use us for the first test case then. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So some clarification then on these e-scooters. We have not been enforcing that at all. Is that not correct? There's been no enforcement?
We don't do any enforcement of the Traffic Safety Act.
No, but our,
The police, that would be a question for the Lacombe Police.
yeah, so I mean, there is no enforcement on that at this time in our community, as far as I know. So, but we're allowed to use the rental ones, but not your own personal one. So some insanity, obviously, and needs to be clarified. So our bylaw allows the e-scooters to be used, is that correct?
The way it's written right now, it does, yes.
So we're going to lead the way. I don't mind that at all. Because I mean, it's crazy not to allow you to use one you bought when you can go down the street and rent one. It doesn't make any sense at all. So I appreciate that being in our bylaw.
CEO Gowdy.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So I guess I would want to be careful about putting something in the municipal bylaw that would then lead to an expectation of municipal bylaw officers enforcing it when, yes, I would predict that the number of police agencies actively enforcing on privately owned e-scooters is very low across the country. And that the Lacombe Police Service is likely very much focused on the same sorts of impactful criminality and dangerous activity that other police forces are, and are probably not making this a high priority. So if it is in the municipal bylaw, that is something that we would look at enforcing through the municipalities' forces. So I would actually probably encourage you to be silent on it, and with the expectation that the Traffic Safety Act, when it's next updated, will remove some of this confusion that certainly you refer to it as insanity. It is a little silly to have that differentiation by ownership.
Can I
Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, but if we have it in our bylaw that it's okay, then we don't have to enforce anything, correct?
You are not able to overrule higher jurisdictions of law through municipal bylaw. So you could put it in there to provide an indication to your community members that the peace officers will not be enforcing it. But if, for example, the Macomb Police Service discovered actually there's some real safety concerns with these things and I want to enforce on them, they would not be bound by the municipal bylaw.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I saw Councillor Gullickson going a different direction with that and then caught me at the end. I also would not be in favor of seeing this in there just due to, as the CAO mentioned, with muddying the waters between different jurisdictions here. I am pleased with the changes and I think I accept them. And although it may be unfortunate that these are not legal, I think it is, up to the agencies such as the Lacombe Police Force to decide how they handle that. So I would like to not see it involved. Thank you.
So I would just have Director Piche just find out where as the e-scooters in question are considered a leisure vehicle, where the use comes up in the proposed new bylaw, just so we're all clear on the way that it reads currently.
I'm sorry, are you saying that they're not listed? They are listed in the leisure vehicles?
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
And then where are the use of leisure vehicles in bylaw 506, so that we can all just have a second glance over to see if it reads the way that we would prefer.
It is sections, I want to say 7.5.
Bicycles, leisure vehicles, and
Yeah.
mobility aids.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, 7.5. Section A.
So no person shall operate a leisure vehicle
Oh, sorry.
or
Section B, sorry.
or any other similar device where prohibited by a traffic controlled device. And then B, all persons operating a leisure vehicle, mobility aid, or other similar device shall use a sidewalk in a safe manner and yield to pedestrians, with the exception of where no sidewalks are available. So all persons operating a leisure vehicle. So we've defined leisure vehicle to encompass e-scooters. So we're suggesting that they can be used on sidewalks. And is that the route that we want to go? Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I'm a little bit surprised at this. I realize that I'm probably coming across as anal, but the reason why this is a problem and why I think it needs to be incorporated into our bylaw, and that I think by just sort of turning away from it is a bit of a cop-out, I think it needs to be addressed in the definition because there's legal implications here. So when accidents happen on an uninsured, unregistered vehicle, which an e-scooter essentially is, that's a problem. That's why they're not allowed right now. There's no provisions for that. I think a simple insertion of something like under the definitions 313, where it says what a leisure vehicle is, the last little part of that could read, I'm assuming, as defined by the Traffic Safety Act. I'm assuming that they are actually defined in the Traffic Safety Act, because somehow we know that one type of e-scooter is okay in this province and another type of e-scooter is not. So where is that referenced? And that could be simply referring to that law. So then should it change in the future, which we do not have the ability to override, of course, then it references that for people to look. Obviously, I'm just perhaps one vote, but I do think that we owe it to be very clear in our bylaw. We say that over and over again, clarification and simplifying. It's not a matter of going out and chasing down a bunch of kids for having an e-scooter and taking it away. Like that's not what the point of this is. It's the point so that everybody understands when they're making a investment like that they understand what the actual rules are in this community. And unfortunately, in that regard, we don't get to make them. That's a provincial matter.
Councillor Conick.
Yeah, and further than that, I was just going to suggest, or you can even just put where it says electric scooter, just put rental electric scooter, because that is allowed. And if it's not a rental, then you're not allowed. So I don't know. I agree. Maybe just a simple wordsmith there can correct that problem.
So are we some experiencing difficulty for using e-scooters on sidewalks or on roads or on both or either? What's the issue here? I'm not sure I fully comprehend what it is that that we're trying to accomplish here. CEO Gowdy?
So if I may, the Traffic Safety Act actually does not allow electric scooters off of private property, to Councillor Hibbs's earlier point. There was an exemption put in to allow rental scooter companies to operate by the province. They said with municipal approval, these rental scooter companies can operate and can have a temporary exemption while we figure out the larger legislation. They have not thus far made it a priority to actually put that permanent allowance in or make any sort of comment on anything other than rental fleet scooters. So technically, currently, any electric scooters off of private property are not allowed and could be enforced under the Traffic Safety Act by a police agency. I believe that what Councillor Hibbs is suggesting is that to help residents avoid a situation where they make a significant investment based off a municipal bylaw that says essentially you can operate them on the sidewalk, that we ought to include something that says, I liked what Councillor Conick said, where we would insert under the definition of leisure vehicle, a rental scooter. And when it's next updated, hopefully the province will have updated the Traffic Safety Act and we can remove that rental word. I do want to just say, like the police agency here, I can't see this being a high priority for enforcement while that conflict exists, but I do recognize the legal implications of having something that makes it seem like it is, that actually conflicts with the provincial law. So it would be a simple matter to include rental in the definition, if that would address the issue that you're raising.
So I have no problem with rental being in there, but does that mean removing e-scooter in general, or just adding? Yeah, sure. That clarifies very little in my opinion, but if it's in there, that's fine by me. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So would we have to take away also any similar vehicles out of that statement too? Because wouldn't my little e-scooter be similar to the rental one? I would assume that if you have a scooter that I can rent, and then I own one that I just bought from Cora, and because she can't use it in her district anymore because there's no sidewalks, and I don't have sidewalks either, by the way. But anyway, so I bought this electric scooter, and it's a similar vehicle as it says here. So why wouldn't I assume I could use it? So that's my thought.
You make a good point.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. So the discussion has been as amended as the proposal potential motion is amended. So I'm assuming this has all been noted for amendment. I'll go ahead and make that motion that council approves the third reading of the traffic bylaw 506 as amended. That duly noted of the amendment.
So for clarity in that regard, I would suggest that the only amendment that we have really discussed is the addition of rental e-scooter in the definition of leisure vehicle. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or if there needs to be additional ones. Correct, that we discussed here this evening, though. Judging by the amount of lights on, I think we can consider that change that needs to be made in the addition of rental e-scooter under the definition of leisure vehicle. Discussion seems to be kind of winding down here, so I just want to once again suggest that that was the only one. If there are others, please bring them forward. Very good. Please go ahead and vote then. So traffic bylaw 506 as amended is voted passed unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Director Pesci had all her work all lined up here in one go. Next up is the second reading for bylaw 511, the Municipal Police Commission bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. This evening, administration is presenting the second reading for bylaw 511, the Municipal Police Commission bylaw. On October 10th, the bylaw was reviewed with council in preparation for a collaborative meeting with the Lacombe Police Commission to discuss any proposed changes or suggested changes. On October 16th of 2023, the Lacombe Police Commission joined council in a committee of the whole meeting to review the Police Commission bylaw and collaborate to discuss any required changes. On November 27th of 2023, a draft of the new Municipal Police Commission bylaw was presented to council for first reading. This evening, the bylaw is being presented for second reading as it was originally written. However, at the January 12th meeting of the Lacombe Police Commission, they reviewed the draft bylaw and proposed some additional changes. Administration has reviewed the changes and has made some recommendations to council. So I was planning to go section by section. And if there are any comments or questions at the time, please feel free to interrupt or as we go along. So in the first part of the bylaw is the preamble. And as we discussed at the commission or the committee of the whole meeting, we did make some recommended changes to that. We updated the preamble, and with that, that is what resulted in a new bylaw rather than just an amending bylaw for bylaw 78. As part of the discussion at the January 12th commission meeting, on some of the proposed changes that were sent on to administration, it was requested that we remove the phrase subject to ratification of council from the 7th paragraph in the preamble, as it appears the appointment of the police chief is always ratified. Now, administration doesn't recommend this request. The included wording aligns with the Police Act, section 36.1.1, and the act states that the initial appointment of any individual as police chief must be ratified by council. Is there any discussion or questions regarding that?
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. So yeah, actually that one was highlighted for me, so I appreciate administration's point on that. And then I think there was possibly some confusion from the commission when they presented there. It was saying the word must be, and I think perhaps I was misunderstanding and I'm not sure the proper definition, but I believe the way it was said was that we are required to and not under it is up to us to do that. And so I think there was some confusion in regards to that. So I would like to keep that in there.
And that's as per the Police Act. Yeah. Moving on, if there's no other comments, in the definitions, the definitions of the original bylaw are still valid. One of the new definitions that was added was to define non-association staff. And the definition was added, states that non-association staff shall mean staff who are non-members of the Lacombe Police Association and do not adhere to the collective agreement between the City of Lacombe and the Lacombe Police Association. One of the recommended changes by the commission, they did request to remove the word municipal from the commission definition, as it is not usually used in the title of the Lacombe Police Commission. Administration does not recommend to that request, as again, it aligns with the Police Act, Section 28, and that it's entitled that the municipal police commissions, and the terminology is used throughout.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Thank you, Director Piche, for highlighting all these changes. I guess I still would support the commission's request to remove municipal from Lacombe Municipal Police Commission. Yes, in the act, it refers to municipal police commissions as a more generalized definition, but we're talking specifically to Lacombe Police Commission. And Lacombe Police Commission never has municipal in its title. So that was where that request came from. So I appreciate hugely that you quote the Police Act. But again, the Police Act is talking in generalities, and now we're bringing it more specific to our communities. So I would still support the commission's request to remove municipal from that definition.
Moving forward, under the appointment of commission members, the proposed changes to this section that we made as recommended by council was that the commission is to increase its membership to a minimum of 9 members and a maximum of 12 members. 7 members may be selected from the public, and 2 should be members of the council. The Government of Alberta can appoint up to 3 members as per the Police Act, and the 3 members that the province may appoint may only be dismissed or revoked at the minister's discretion. One of the changes that the Lacombe Police Commission has proposed is that under the appointment section to add a clause that all commission members, whether public, a council member, or provincial appointed, a provincial appointment must have a satisfactory security clearance. Administration, again, does not recommend this request because without a definition of satisfactory, which would have to be defined by the province for provincial appointees, the amendment could create ambiguity about the expected background of commission members.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I don't have any comments regarding that about the security clearance. I kind of get it that it can't be in the bylaw per se. Maybe that's, where should it be though? I guess that would be my question to administration. Where do we record that expectation that members of the police commission should have a security clearance? That would be, I don't know where, because as Director Piche knows, because it's a public meeting, it came up, I don't have a security clearance. And I'm the council member on there. And that's when it all went, okay, what are we talking about here? So somewhere it has to be recorded that that is an expectation of a commission member. So I guess that would be my question to administration about where should that be recorded. My comments, though, for this section pertains to my memory, and I'm appealing to my fellow council members' memory, that the commission is to increase its membership to, to the part above the red part. It says the commission is to increase its membership to a minimum of 9 members and a maximum of 12 members. 7 members may be selected from the public and 2 should be members of council. My memory was that we were desiring a commission of 7 members and that 2 would be council members. The commission felt that wasn't, that was not something that they had any input on. They very much left it up to us. So I'm bringing that back to us. What was your memory of our desire? I mean, we can't affect what the government of Alberta is going to do in terms of appointees, but I thought that that was our desire as a council, that it would be 7 members with 2 of them being council members.
Councillor Hoekstra, to the best of my recollection, that's what I recall as well. I think there was certainly seen as being advantageous to have 2 council members there. I guess for clarity and redundancy in case someone is unable to make the meeting. No, I remember it as being 7. It certainly wasn't 12, but CEO Gowdy.
There was consensus on 2 council members. When we went back to review, there was not consensus on the numbers, but there were more that spoke in favor of having a higher number, I think, to mitigate a potential situation where the provincial appointees, which could be up to 3, could have outsized influence on the commission's decisions. However, we had actually talked about this ahead of time to say we do have some concerns about just finding and maintaining, even creating meeting space where you currently meet would not be suitable. And so we would actually recommend that the 7 members plus however many members are provincial appointees, which could be anywhere from 1 to 3, which would make your total commission 8 to 11. Is that what you're, yes, okay.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Yes. No, I thank you, CEO Gowdy. That was my understanding. 7 to 10, not 11, correct? Yes, 7 plus 3 appointees to 10. That was my understanding. And of that 10, 2 would be council members, 3 potentially provincial, and 5 from the community.
And with that change, how do we address quorum on that commission?
Quorum is 50% plus 1 of the membership. So depending on what the level is, if the province has appointed only 1 or 3, doesn't matter because it's just 50% of what the current membership is at that time.
Very good. No other questions or comments on the overall composition and numbers of the commission? Councillor Hoekstra.
I would like to make a motion to that effect, and I don't know what procedurally how that works, but that we make that amendment to this bylaw. Could you help me with procedure on that, please?
CEO Gowdy.
So remind me, is second reading on the floor?
Has not
So
been
I
made
think
yet.
if you were to propose second reading with the amendments that we've discussed here, which would be, to be very clear, the composition of the committee, the membership would therefore be 5 public members, 1 to 3 provincial appointees and 2 council members for a total makeup of between 7 and 10 members. Quorum remains the same. And I believe that would satisfy that change. You had also asked a question though earlier about security clearance. And I think that is something that council should consider of what, if you want to require security clearance, what is a disqualifying background? What returns on the security clearance that says disqualification? And I wonder, is that something that's better handled on a one-off basis, or is it included in the bylaw? Did you come across that anywhere else where security clearance was referenced in other municipal commissions?
No, not what, I haven't looked at other commissions, but I was looking in some of our other acts and there is nothing that states.
Well, you ponder that for the composition of the commission, rather than saying public members. I think the provincially appointed ones are public members as well. So if we could put municipally appointed members of the public or something, just so there isn't confusion there to better. Councillor Gullickson?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, speaking to the security clearance, I mean, what is satisfactory? Like, who decides that? And we certainly are not qualified to do that, to decide what is satisfactory. So I would hope that we could remove that. If it doesn't exist anywhere else, why would we have it?
Myself, I would like to see that qualification be in there. I think to try and come up with a threshold of acceptance, I think we should wait and see if in fact maybe address that when on a one-off basis as it becomes an issue where in fact someone does not pass a background check. Given Councillor Hoekstra's question will pass, that might be an issue right away, but so she knows I'm just, but yeah, I mean, quite frankly, there are far less impactful organizations that demand background checks of that nature, and I just think this was an oversight that wasn't there all along. But CEO Gowdy?
So I think to require a security clearance to be submitted would be reasonable. That makes sense, and you could then make the decision on a one-off basis. But the idea of a security clearance or a criminal record check or any of those sorts of background checks being just a green light, red light is overly simplistic. It comes back as a mixed bag, typically, with some stuff. So, there may be some misdemeanors far in the past that show up. And I know from employment experiences we've had, those would not necessarily disqualify someone from serving in even a financially sensitive position. Or I could imagine misdemeanors that would not disqualify someone from serving effectively on a police commission. And so I think that having it as a tailored individual approach makes sense where they're required to submit it, but that component of satisfactory makes it seem like there is some defined threshold or bar that needs to be met. And I don't know. I think that would be different for each person and would have to be discussed on an individual basis.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Oh,
Having never seen a report of that nature, been subject to them for various duties in the past. I don't know what all is contained in them. I just, when it was a criminal background check, I think was a far different than just a police background check. So, yeah, I'll leave that up to administration's judgment to come up with some sort of a litmus test for us to follow. But I don't think some sort of a qualification in that regard is a bad thing, and I think probably was an expectation of the majority of the public all along. Councillor Hoekstra? Oh, sorry, that was the same light. Very good. Treasurer Piche?
Moving on. Okay, so under the meeting of the commission, the changes that council has proposed is that the chair may call a special meeting when appropriate. The meeting request must be in writing and state the purpose of the meeting. The meeting must be within 14 days of receiving the request for a special meeting. Should a meeting be requested within 24 hours, at least 2/3 of the whole commission agrees to this in writing before the meeting is held. And any matters discussed at the special meeting must align with the purpose that is stated in the notice unless the entire commission is present and agrees to address additional issues. Some proposed considerations that the commission has made is that under the meetings of the commission section, to add the word public in the section that says 6 meetings. So it should, they want it to read 6 public meetings. Administration has no issues with that request, and we propose that would be fine. The other item that they wanted us to consider under the special commission meetings and of section 6.3 to be read as the chair calls a special meeting by giving at least 24 hours notice in writing to each commission member, and unless matters are to be discussed in camera, the public stating the purpose of the meeting and the date and time and the place at which it is to be held. The clause, and unless matters are to be discussed in camera, is what was new to that section. The administration reviewed that, and we do accept that request with a modification. And that is in that section, and unless matters on the agenda are to be discussed in camera, we wanted to add the word all matters because that could cause some ambiguity with a portion being in public and a portion in camera.
Don't see any
Nope.
opposition to that
Okay.
that clarification. I think it is very well founded.
So for the rules governing meetings, we recommended that quorum for the commission is 50% plus 1 member of the membership at the time of the meeting. So that, speaking as what we talked about earlier, is that where no matter what the number of commission members are, it's 50% plus 1. The commission did ask for consideration in the section governing rules governing meetings to remove the section 7.1b. The chair shall be responsible for conduct of a meeting. Administration they would like to, we would like to see a modification to that request. The commission would like to see that removed because they sometimes have the vice chair. But what we propose is that the chair shall be responsible for the conduct of a meeting. In their absence, the vice chair shall be responsible for the conduct of the meeting. Moving on into other sections, the freedom of information and protection of privacy. We propose that the FOIP section is to be updated to reference of the current legislation. And then in the chief attending meetings, we did not propose any changes to that section at all. In the CAO attending meetings, We did propose that the CAO or their delegate shall attend the commission meetings. Now, the commission did propose a change, and their proposal was the CAO or their designate shall attend the commission meetings as a non-voting participant and shall be excluded from in-camera matters unless invited by the chair to remain. They added the ads as a non-voting participant and shall be excluded from in-camera matters unless the chair is unless invited by the chair to remain. Administration would like to make an amendment to that request, and that is that as a non-voting participant and shall be excluded from in-camera matters unless invited by the commission to remain. And the reason we ask that is that it's the commission as a whole, not one particular person is the arbitrator of attendance. So we recommend that it just is that the commission is listed rather than the chair is inviting the CAO to remain in camera.
So I think that the vast majority of times that would work in the event that there was some sort of a conflict between a chair and the CAO that they either did or did not want them to be there. How would they go about, how would a non-voting member go about forcing a vote of the commission to see if in fact the CAO or designate was welcome to attend an in-camera session?
I'm not sure it's really between the CAO or the chair. I think it's more of the commission members and the chair requesting the CAO to attend. So if there's certain members from the commission that would like to see the CAO attend, and it's possible that the chair may not, then it would probably come down to a vote.
Fair enough. No, that's good clarification. I mean, now that it's been an issue currently, I think that that's good foresight to have it in there.
So moving to the secretary of the commission, the proposed changes to that section is from council is that we align with the Police Act. It is recommended that the title of the secretary to the commission be changed to the board secretary to the commission, and all other components of the positions are in alignment with the Police Act. Now, the commission did send in a request to consider under that section, and they wanted to add 3 new clauses, and that is be excluded from in-camera matters unless invited by the chair to remain, be subject to duty of confidentiality to the commission as if a member of the commission, and be subject to security clearance. Now, administration accepts some of those amendments with modifications, and those modifications are that for the first clause, that is excluded from in-camera matters unless invited by the commission to remain, similar to the CAO. We accept the clause F to remain as proposed, and that we remove clause G as a security check is actually completed upon recruitment. And without defining satisfactory, again, the amendment could create ambiguity about the expected background of the personnel.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Sorry to cry wolf so many times. You don't know if to take me seriously, but anyhow, I was saying I would like to include G because it's the wording that actually makes sense for the whole bylaw, just to be subject to a security clearance. And so it's a one of, there's no satisfactory there. So I had made notes to myself that that's what could be with the other part, that it's not that they're required to have a satisfactory, but just be subject to it. And then it's up to the police chief and whomever to deal with it. So I like that wording, so let's please include G.
Moving on. So information to council. the proposed changes to this section was to add a clause that the mayor shall share all information from the commission with council. The powers and duties of the commission. The proposed changes is that there are no proposed changes to that section. So the appointment of the chief is proposed for clarity to read, the commission shall appoint the chief of police. The initial appointment of any individual as chief of police must be ratified by council. And that is in alignment with the Police Act. Appointment of members. Oh, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you, Director Pichet. I believe you inadvertently skipped over the proposed changes to the funding section.
I was actually coming back to that. I was going in order of the bylaw. Sorry.
Oh, rather,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you for that, though. So the appointed members of appointment of members, there were no proposed changes to that section. Preparation of a policing plan. The proposed changes that council made is that there are proposed wording changes to align with the Alberta Police Act section 29(1)B, and the new verbiage will be annually the commission shall submit to the council a policing plan for the next ensuing financial year, which will specify the level of police service and programs to be provided to the municipality. And then for preparation of the budget, the proposed changes is that there are proposed wording changes just to clean up the language and make it more concise and align with the language from the Police Act. And then the next section, going back to the funding. So under the funding, we didn't propose any changes. However, under the section 19, the authorization of expenditures, the Police Commission wishes to remove the clause's last portion and the authority of the chief administration officer of the city in that section. And administration, the recommendation is that we accept the request with an amendment, and that the limitation is a reference to previous versions of the municipal purchasing policy, in which the CAO had prescribed a limit for approval of purchases. Accordingly, the chief of police was held to the same limitation. The current version of the municipal procurement policy limits purchases to the approved budget rather than an arbitrary dollar figure. The chief of police should be afforded the same managerial authority. Then sorry. The next one is preparation of budget. There are proposed wording changes. Oh, I believe I said that one. And then the last one is the negotiation of the collective agreement. And administration consulted with the chief of police regarding his membership on the negotiating committee, and there are no proposed changes. And those are the changes to that bylaw. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.
Now all the lights quit. Oh, there we go. Who was first in? Councillor Clonic.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. No, my only question is, so again, assuming that we pass second reading, that it would then go back to the commission one more time for another look-see, is that correct?
It was more proposed that we could go back and make any amendments. If in time I don't know if there is another meeting before February 12th, because that's when I would propose to bring these changes back from what you guys decide tonight. I don't recall when the next meeting is. It's usually the second Thursday of the month. I'm sorry? The 8th. Oh, the 8th. So they would have an opportunity to review this, but I don't know if it would be in time for the proposed changes to be done, because that Thursday we would have to have the agenda out by then.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. I guess I have a two-part question. Question number one, at no point in the bylaw, it is requested for anybody to have security clearance as is right now. That's correct? Okay, and I guess question two, why the concern now to have that? I like the language that was chosen earlier in regards to ambiguity and how we are choosing people to attend this. My apologies, I'm not very good at using Stats Canada, but it seems like only 5% of 100,000 people have criminal record, but I can't actually, there might be people doing more than that, so it might be less. I guess I'm not super interested in that change. I don't see criminal organizations taking over our municipal police commission, but that's just my input on that. So thank you.
Absolutely, and we'll perhaps entertain answers both from administration and from our representative, Councillor Hoekstra. Would you care to start?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Just in response to Councillor Dallas, it was just it's a requirement of a commission member. And so there was just this surprise that hadn't been, that wasn't the practice. Though how could we introduce that practice or ensure that practice was taking place? So that is where it's one of those maybe arbitrary requirements, but it is there.
Gowdy?
So I do want to say in the advertisements for volunteers for the police commission, there's disclosure that they will have to submit a security check or a criminal record check. And in the Lacombe Police Commission policy manual, there's a section that says applicants will be subject to security checks, including a criminal record check at a minimum, and may include character or reference checks and interview of the applicant by the commission or council. So you do have that coverage embedded in your documentation now. We typically wouldn't see that in a bylaw. Having said that, it's not going to change the practice. My concern was really with the satisfactory component of it, is where things, it is subject to council's satisfaction for sure. But to embed it in the bylaw implies that there is some criteria by which you will judge satisfactory or not. And again, just my own experience, I found that to be very, very difficult when the situation actually arises. You have to take a tailored approach each time. There was another question though, prior to Councillor Dallas's, I think, that I was going to respond to, but it has escaped me. So I'm sorry.
If somebody had, do you know who put the question forward, or?
Sorry, yes, it was Councillor Connick's question about referring to the commission. Certainly we had planned to bring this February 12th. It would be difficult to turn that around meaningfully between February 8th and 12th. There's no rush though. And so if that's something you would like to see, we'll just bring it back at the second meeting in February and give the commission a little more time to respond. That would be no problem either.
So the commission did have a fairly wholesome discussion to bring the recommendations forward. They did so far. I'm not totally sold how fruitful another go around would be, but if there's strong desire for that. Councillor Hoekstra, do you have anything to add in that regard?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would like to respond to that. There was no desire from the commission that they see it again. They felt, first of all, compliments to us that they've been included in this process for many months. There has been a lot of attention paid to this, and I guess they appreciated that the communication through Director Piche and myself at this table, they would accept the results of this table. That is what I heard. There was no expectation that it would be going back to them at this time. So.
Well, we certainly appreciate you saying that, and just by the mere fact that Councillor Connick brought it up, I think that speaks highly to the relationship that we have, and that it is one that is got strong communications, always open to improving both the relationship and the police commission as an organization overall. So thank you both. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess my question flows out of actually when we were talking about quorum and what the makeup of the commission is. So I didn't notice, but maybe I could be brought to my attention in this bylaw, or maybe there's a policy that goes along with this bylaw that talks about the rules around having a meeting. I did notice that it says that council will establish rules governing the operations of the commission. But what about the actual rules of having a meeting? I don't like that. None of that's addressed in our own organizational bylaw, whatever you want to call it. It talks about using Robert's rules, and that, this is, things like quorum or how a motion is made or that sort of thing. I had noticed in a previous meeting of the police commission, not this last one, but a previous one, where someone had abstained, for example. We don't do that. And I was just curious as to, it wasn't curiosity enough to bring it up in a meeting, but why someone abstained. It was silent in the minutes as to why that was because somebody had a conflict of interest. They just simply didn't want to vote. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, like, the legal status of a commission, what are the expectations of following some sort of system when it comes to having a meeting, and just how legal are those proceedings? Because it just made me start thinking about the governance aspect of that body. Like, what is the expectation? I realize that for the vast majority of them that they're technically volunteers, but that is a pretty high profile and important organization within our community. So I guess I'm asking administration for some guidance as to what exactly their legal standing is and what rules, what dictates the rules that they use to conduct a meeting, to have a vote, because these are some pretty important decisions that they're making sometimes.
C.O. Gotti.
There is no such definition. If you look through the Police Act, they do talk about the commission's makeup and the establishment of the commission. I had actually looked for some similar stuff about defining the difference between a public and a private meeting, particularly for the commission's request that meetings that are held entirely in camera not be required to provide public advertising, because of course that wouldn't be kosher for the council to do. You would still have to advertise the meeting. The public, in theory, could walk in and you'd immediately go on camera, but it would still be a publicly disclosed meeting. There is no such requirements for commission that even define that things will be decided by vote, for example. That's not even in there. So you would have to define that specifically in this commission bylaw. And from what I have seen, you would be unique in doing so. The rest of the province does not have that structure around it. There's a general understanding that they default to similar procedures as the city in the absence of specific governing documents for themselves. So you could lean on that and say, well, the city's procedural bylaw references Robert's rules, therefore you don't talk about how you're going to make decisions. So it's by default Robert's rules or the city's procedural bylaw. But there is nothing in the Police Act nor in typical police commission bylaws that talks about the actual functioning of the meetings and that sort of thing.
And so currently we do have the rules governing meetings as section 7 here. It's relatively short, but that is the full extent. Okay. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I also move that council approves the second reading of the Municipal Police Commission Bylaw 511 as amended.
Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I really wanted to make that motion, but because I had a bunch of things that had to be included in that motion, but I don't know what should we do now, but yeah.
There's certainly no reason why you couldn't offer some amendments.
Okay, well then I will.
Motion.
Mayor Creasy, if that's more appropriate, then
no.
My apologies. I was just I thought everybody's discussion was done.
They're fine.
Sorry.
As
Apologies.
Councillor Ekstrom?
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Does as amended cover it? Because I've suggested some significant amendments tonight. And do we want them highlighted? I guess I can in discussion right now say, I trust that those amendments would be, we would remove municipal from the bylaw when it's coupled with Lacombe Police Commission. When it's not coupled with Lacombe Police Commission, it can still say municipal. That would be my suggestion. Regarding appointees, there will be 5 members shall be selected by council from the public at large, and 2 more shall be members of council of the city of Lacombe. That's kind of how I see that one. Appointees would be subject to security clearance, to a security clearance. Keep clause G under section 11 with regarding the board secretary, that that person too would be subject to a security clearance. And then just as a comment regarding abstaining, just to follow up with Councillor Hibbs, that was the suggestion from the chair of the meeting at that moment. And that's the person that is in charge of the meeting. And so that's respected in that moment. So I believe I covered the most significant parts that I hope that it will, that you'll cover that in there, Director Piche.
I believe there was several others as well. Those are some that you found particularly important or impactful, which is fine.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I guess I'm just highlighting the ones that are different than the request for than the document that we were given tonight.
Thank you.
To respect the document that was presented and the recommendations that came from administration. Let's go with them, except these things that I highlighted tonight. Is that fair? Thank you.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I actually don't have any comments on this. I just wanted to apologize for earlier in my speculation for reasons for the security clearance. I should have just stopped when I asked the question of why. And so thank you for this opportunity to do that.
I think I know why you're saying that, and I don't think anyone would take it the way that, it's fine. CEO Gowdy.
Director Piche has advised me that I erred in saying there was nothing that would talk about how the meetings were run. And she reminded me that the police commission policy manual does have some definitions in there. It's not captured in the bylaw. So thank you for that correction. And I apologize that I was incorrect earlier.
Which is fine, but that is covered under the extremely late rules governing meetings under item 7.2 already. The commission may adopt any other additional rules and procedures governing the meetings and activities of the commission insofar as they're not inconsistent with the Police Act or this bylaw. So I mean, that's stated in the bylaw. Whether they choose to have policies on that conform to the Police Act, then that's the commission's business. So I believe we have some amendments to vote on. Motion to amend to vote on first. CEO Gowdy.
I think there is a little bit of room for misinterpretation because Councillor Ross had said with amendments, it may be that these were the very amendments that he was referring to. And so I think you could either do a vote on an amending motion to adopt second reading, so we're clear on the amendments, or if Councillor Ross confirms those are the amendments I was talking about, I can just reread them. Clear?
Actually, because of the reason that Councillor Hoekstra stated that those are outside of what is printed in the material that was available to the public, I think that we will entertain them. I don't think there'll be an issue with them, but I think they should be highlighted separately. So I think that we'll do that vote first and then go to Councillor Ross's preceding motion, main motion rather. So we'll wait for administration to input Councillor Hoekstra's additional amendments, and then we can go to the main motion. Councillor Konik?
Sorry, so, but we have a motion on the floor, so do we not have to deal with that first? And then she can bring forth her motion with the amendments, or?
No, the amending motion needs to be dealt with first. That we needed a short moment of silence in amongst all of this discussion. Councillor Hoekstra.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. I didn't really make a motion. Can I make, like, I just listed the amendments that I hoped would be considered. Did I make, I don't feel like I made a formal motion. I was just thinking these would be additional amendments. So,
That's certainly not the way that it was taken, and because
Okay.
of the reasons that you stated, perhaps you could just go ahead and make that now, and we'll let administration continue on with the one, because your reasoning was quite valid.
okay.
Those ones were not necessarily as outlined in the documentation, which is a package that goes out to public. So I think by highlighting those, doing a separate motion makes it crystal clear to anybody watching that these are in fact in addition to them. And then when council considers third reading, they'll all be assembled together. It's fine. But in the interim, I think this is making the best of an interesting situation. So if you'd care to proceed so that you were clear in your own mind that you did in fact make the appropriate motion, that would be great.
Okay, well, I just will say I move to add these amendments to the bylaw. Do I need to state them again, legislative coordinator? Yeah.
Please.
The removal of municipal when it's coupled with Lacombe Police Commission. That appointees would be 5 members shall be selected by council from the public at large, and 2 more shall be members of the council of the city of Lacombe. That was awkward. All appointees shall be subject to a security clearance. I can't remember what letter that is. And then under section 11, board secretary, keep clause G, that the board secretary would be subject to a security clearance.
Did you have some additional information?
No, I was just sending, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, I was just sending the potential wording back to Mr. Tomnak, and so I'm sure it will be.
Very good. No, that's fine. I expect anyone that's watching now understands and appreciates the sometimes cumbersome nature of dealing with a voting system like this on items that are considered on the spot. But it just takes a few extra moments, and we will work through them all in the betterment of our governance. So it won't be too long, and we will have it up for consideration here. I'll give Councillor Konik a moment to collect his thoughts for his notice of motion, which will be coming up afterwards. And in fact, it is 8 o'clock. So while just in order to give administration a few moments to conclude their business, I will call it for a short recess, say 5 minutes, and we'll reconvene after that. All right, we're back on air, everyone. Reconvening. It is 8:04. Coordinator Bellabono, we do have a amending motion before us. I'd like for you to read it back to us to confirm that we've got the items listed correctly according to the mover, Councillor Hoekstra.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The motion on the floor from Councillor Hoekstra is council resolves to amend the draft police commission bylaw prior to second reading with the following amendments. 1, the word municipal removed when referring to the Lacombe Municipal Police Commission. 2, commission membership changes to 7 to 10 comprised of 2 council members, 5 public municipally appointed members, and between 1 and 3 provincial appointees. 3, all commission appointees and the board secretary are subject to security clearance.
Councillor Hoekstra, is that correct?
Yes, Mayor Creasy.
Very
That's
good.
good.
Any questions or comments on that amending motion? And thank you for reminding me of that, Coordinator Bellabono. Keep in mind that the verbal outline of that amending motion may not appear identical because of those lengthy ones are truncated on these machines. So please keep that in mind. And with that, seeing no buttons on, please go ahead and vote accordingly. And that is unanimously in favor. Having that amending motion dealt with, we'll now revert back to the original motion. And it has been a few moments, so if you've got that one before you, Coordinator Bellabono, will kindly read that back into the record so everybody is clear on what they're voting on next.
Mayor Creasy, the motion on the floor by Councillor Ross is that council approves the second reading of the Municipal Police Commission bylaw 511 as amended.
Thank you very much. Everybody's clear on what we're voting on now. Does anyone have anything further? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that is unanimously in favor as well. Thanks everyone for your patience. Thanks IT for working through those changes. We appreciate it. Director Piché, this will be back before council for consideration for reading number 3 when?
And this, we'll bring it back for the second meeting in February.
Thank you very much. And just so everyone knows, that is for our February 26th, which is a Monday meeting, beginning at 5:30 p.m. as well. Thank you. Councillor Connick, you had read us a notice of motion last meeting. I'll have you reread it again this evening, and you can start discussion if you'd wish.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I would so move that council direct administration to draft an amendment to the land use bylaw for council's review and consideration to allow one sign on a residential lot to a maximum size of 600 millimeter by 600 millimeter. I brought this forward for 2 reasons. One, we had an individual who had come to present it to council not too long ago about a rather large sign he has on his front lawn. It's roughly 4 by 8. That has come under some scrutiny from his neighbors or others. I did respect his viewpoint that he just wants to express an opinion, and I think he should be allowed to do that. However, I believe the sign should be much smaller. To that end, we already have signs throughout the community that fall within this size, roughly 2 feet by 2 feet, that express an opinion, if you will, whether they say support our nurses or protect public education or something to that effect, which I'm told is not allowed within the land use bylaw already. So this amendment will then seek to capture that, to allow those signs to happen, and to give this particular individual an opportunity to put up a much smaller sign. So I'd like to see this passed. I guess once it comes back to us, then we can really dive down into it, because I think we have to be fairly prescriptive on what you cannot have on a sign. I think we have to be careful that we don't say signs cannot be offensive, because we are easily offended. So I think we have to be very careful. I think we have to actually get very descriptive, and I think that's where the challenge may be with this. And that's why I look forward to seeing it come back to see if it captures all that, because I don't, I could put a sign up on my front lawn that says God is great, and then the atheist on my street will be offended. So I think we have to be very descriptive, and I think that's one of the challenges with this, that it must say it cannot be hateful, racist, misogynist, homophobic, Islamophobic, whatever. And I don't know if that's possible, but at any rate, I'd like to see this go forward and see what the administration come back with, and then we can decide if we can further proceed with it or not. But given that we have signs that we're not proactively enforcing as it is, much smaller signs, this amendment will allow those signs to continue and allow others like this particular individual to express a viewpoint. Again, granted that it is not, that it fits within certain parameters. So anyway, that's what I'd like to see go forward and see what administration come back with. Thank you.
Thank you. When I look back to that evening when that was before us as public forum item, I believe, I think that's important. Free speech is important. However, when things are taken to the extreme, it's necessary for council to act and limit, in this case, the size of a sign to a reasonable limit. And I think that which sign that basically works out to 2 feet by 2 feet, which, like you said, 600 millimeters is basically the sign of the vast majority of the signs that we see currently, even though technically it is not necessarily allowed. I think there's some provisions made for advertising for realtors and temporary signs. I think perhaps could be mistaken for garage sales, or is that a separate item? Don't even go there. I'm getting a look from CAO Gowdy.
Election signs and realtor signs are very well defined.
So, some may argue that garage sales and elections are, don't go there.
Those are offensive enough.
There you go. Councillor Gullickson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I don't know, do we even need to look at those issues? Are there not laws already on content for signs that we don't have to get involved with those? I don't think. You can't put anything on any sign for sure.
I think that's one of the things that we can look forward to coming before us.
But I'm just saying, I don't think we need to be in, I don't know if it needs to be part of our bylaw as far as the sign goes. I think that would be covered somewhere else.
Councillor Gullickson, I guess that's what I was getting at. It very well could be, but I think it's unreasonable for us to know, or to expect administration to know the answer to that off the cuff. If in fact that is the case, then I expect that's the way the report will come back to us in the future for consideration, as stated in the motion. Is that a fair assessment, CAO Gowdy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Creasy. And that was exactly what I was going to say, is that I suspect you are correct. We have not done that research yet, waiting for the results of this notice of motion.
Would certainly be the best case scenario, though. I agree. Absolutely. No other questions or concerns, so please go ahead and vote. I expect this will be mostly green, but that is unanimously in favor. So we'll give administration whatever time is necessary to bring this forward for our consideration and take it from there. That concludes all of the public business, unless I'm mistaken. So I'll just go through the next meetings briefly. All three of which are regular council meetings here at 5:30 in Chambers. Monday for February the 12th, rather. And again on Monday, February the 26th. And followed by Monday, March the 11th. And the one that was not added to my notes that we did schedule this evening was March 4th. And I'm sorry, March 6th at 5:30 p.m. here in Chambers. Okay, we'll try this one more time. Gotta love these on the fly. So, as originally stated, March 4th, 5:30 p.m. here in Chambers. Not the 6th, but the 4th. Very good. So, that leaves us with some in-camera business. Councillor Dallas.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Creasy. Motion to move in camera.
Very good. It's 8:17. Please go ahead and vote. And while those are tabulated, so in order to keep business moving forward, given that this is an IT item, I would just like a show of hands for those who are voting in favor that we move into camera. And that is unanimous. Thanks.